Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Michael Wolf. I am CEO of a company called Bottom Line Analytics. Today I'm going to share with you a real case study that was very similar to one that my company recently was involved with. For confidentiality reasons, I am disguising the names. Our video today is entitled The Long and Difficult Road to the Land of Positive Marketing ROI. This guy is the subject of what we're going to talk about today. His name is Bob Gallery. For the past dozen years or so, Bob's been working his way up in the marketing world with various companies. And recently, he was hired as the Chief Marketing Officer of a company called Rogers Consumer Brands, or RCB. Bob was tasked to generate a complete turnaround assignment for this company's largest brand, called Parasol. Parasol accounted for over 80% of the company's net profit and has been suffering from a 3-year sales decline. So obviously the company's board of directors was very anxious to turn this business around and recharge some positive business growth. And Bob Gallery was selected as the leader to do that. But Bob also had a sense that he needed to generate a quick turnaround and results. So let me give you some background a little bit about the Parasol brand. As I mentioned, it's been declining in sales for 3 straight years. In the current year, it's declined by 5.1%. The advertising budget for Parasol was about $16 million. That's a 33% increase from the prior year. And as you might guess, the board of directors is really in no mood for increasing marketing spend. This budget, in fact, the marketing budget was actually the highest line item expense in the company's income statement. But the fact of the matter is, having increasing marketing spend and declining sales is not a good thing. And prior to Bob's taking this position, the prior CMO was dismissed after only 2 years. So Bob had a keen sense that there was risk involved in this undertaking. First of all, looking at the situation, Bob believed there's a lot of wasteful and ineffective spending that's been going on within the marketing budget, and he needed to find out quickly what was working and not working. In order to get there, he needed to do 2 things. The first thing he needed to do is a complete audit of exactly where the money was going, what programs, what media, what channels, and what initiatives were being where the money was being spent. The second thing he needed to do is he needed to come up with an accurate measurement tool. That tool, based upon some experience he's had in other positions, is an exercise called marketing mix modeling. And let's talk a little bit about that, on what it is and how we're going about doing it for RCB. This marketing mix modeling is employing predictive analytics or econometrics, which actually links marketing inputs, all of the paid marketing plus other business drivers, into a comprehensive predictive model which predicts and links to period by period sales. And the approach that we've taken here, we're actually looking at advertising in a 3-dimensional way and transforming data so that we can, using data in order to do that. Because we know that advertising does have a short-term sales lift, and most marketing mix model does measure that. So we're going to measure the short-term sales lift from mass media like TV, radio, print, and digital advertising. We've also got a proprietary approach for measuring what we call the long-term effect of advertising, which is often is large of a part, if not more important, than the short-term sales lift, which generally doesn't appear in most marketing mix modeling. Bottom line analytics has developed a way of measuring that. And the third dimension is also a unique dimension, is when we look at advertising, we also need to measure the effect of the advertising message or the creative. In this case, we're going to use copy test information on advertising in order to do that. But we're going to measure other things. We're going to measure the effect of digital activity, the website, and the SEO. We're going to look at the impact of Parasol's earned social media campaigns. And then we're going to look at some tactical things like retail price and store distribution or penetration of the brand, how many products are on the shelf. And then finally, we're going to look at an environmental factor called the macroeconomic factor, which is simply a measurement of the impact of the health of the economy on sales. So all of these form together to produce a predictive model that fits with historical sales and can predict into the future. The first thing we do is we calibrate our model, meaning we develop it, and then we validate it. Why do we need to show you this up front? Because, first of all, it's really critical to understand that the tool is valid and that it's reliable and accurate enough in order that we can use the insights and feel confident about the insights, which will involve making multi-million-dollar decisions. What we see on this chart, as you'll see, the red line is just a plot over time of actual brand sales. The blue line is the prediction that comes about from this model that we've developed. And you see there's pretty close alignment there. In fact, if we look at the white area in this chart, which is where we calibrated the model, we have a 98% fit. If we look at it, an area which we call a holdout forecast, a blind holdout forecast, is not part of the model calibration. And at the end, we just simply plug the variables or the parameters from this model to predict the future and to see how well it fits future data which it has no prior knowledge from. And we see a 95% fit there. So actually this is a very, very good model. And the average period to period error is less than plus or minus 1%. So this is to establish credibility and in order to make valid judgments about what's happening in the business with the brand, and also judgments about what kind of actions they need to take. The first thing that we look at here is a business driver variance. What this chart shows is the brand year-over-year sales impact of each of these drivers. So on the positive side, we see positive effects from the economy and the long-term advertising effect and a baseline sales. But all of the negatives are most of these negatives, besides retail price, are the short-term advertising factors. In fact, the short-term advertising factors account for 4.7% of the 5.1% annual decline. So Bob obviously thinks that there's a lot of waste and inefficiency in how this money was spent. But the first question is, what will the model tell us about how much should they be spending? As I said, they were spending in the last year $16 million. Is that the right number? So we go through an exercise that links and simulates sales in the red line at different levels of spending horizontally, from 0 to 25 million. What kind of sales impact that spending occurs. And you will notice that the red line turns very flat after about $12 million of spend. So even if Bob was given a lot more money to spend based upon how it's been spent, the mix of spending, he would not be expected to get much for that additional investment. So he really has to go and understand the quality and try to find out the things that are working and not working and act accordingly. The dotted line is a net ROI or profit line at these different levels of spending, and you see the curve actually hits a peak and then starts declining. So the current spending, 16 million, is in the declining portion of that curve. So the optimal spend, that is the spend that will generate the most ROI, is actually $1 million less at $15 million. So the first tack that we're going to do is to change the budget number and actually cut $1 million off of the marketing budget. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is the key insight that we're going to have here. So what you see here is 40 individual ads and the impact of each one of these ads individually. So you see here what is known as an ROI number per dollar spent. So you see some really high ones at the top, some paid TV ads that are generating more than $10 per dollar spent. Very good ROI. But you see a lot of poor performing ads at the bottom. In fact, the red line the red bars are ads which are losing money, and we can actually go through an exercise to say, what is the mix of those ads? We find in terms of the overall dollars spent, individual TV, radio, and digital ads represented are overrepresented in that those red bars. So we're probably going to be focusing on cutting back in some of those media channels. But with the model, we can do a simulation that'll give us some idea of what we call the wasteful portion of the marketing budget. If we just eliminated the red bars, completely eliminated them, what would happen? Well, Paracel sales would go down minus 0.6%, less than 1%. But in so doing, they would actually save $4.1 million in advertising expense. So very inefficient area. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do what is known as a marketing spend optimization exercise, actual mathematical exercise. What this exercise does is it holds spending at a certain level, which would be $15 million, and it reallocates on an ad by ad in lowest level of detail, moving dollars from the low productive activities to the high productive activities in such a way that it maximizes sales overall. In fact, what we're going to find here is that it actually increases sales by the same amount that it lost sales in the last year, 5.1%. So what you're seeing here is in the middle bar is how the money across different media channels is spent, and you see most of it, more than 50% of it spent on TV. To the left bar shows the revenue generated from each of these media channels, and you can visually see that the TV contribution is lower than its fair share in terms of compared to how much is spent behind it. So this is an area we'll be cutting back in likely. And then you'll see some that are the opposite, like the paid digital search and the web SEO are generating higher contributions or returns relative to the amount spent. So we would want to do more of those types of things. So you can see we go through the actual mathematical optimization is targeted to holding the total spending at our target level, 15 million, and reallocating across the individual ads. So overall, we're going to have a spending decline on TV and on paid radio and also the digital display ads, and increases in the other targets, such that it generates an additional 5.1% of increase in sales for $1 million less in overall spending. So is that a deal or not? So in the end, what did Bob Gallery achieve? A year later, despite reducing the total ad spend by $1 million, Bob guided the Parasol brand to even a better 5.4% sales gain. And with the help of also something we use the model for, a price increase of 2%, total profits for the brand went up 16.1%. So here's my contact information. Thank you for your time, and I hope I can speak to you soon and understand more about your marketing challenges. Bye-bye.